So back to the Miriam's book, part of the codification of the doctrine. Last week, we started the topic of being able to distinguish between good and evil spirits. And it was a very quick recap. In this chapter that deals with identity of spirits, Kardec leaves clear to us that we will not always be able to identify the spirits. First of all, they don't want to identify themselves and they don't have to. Sometimes they will try to identify themselves for good and for not so good reasons. Sometimes they will use names that catch our attention for good and for wrong reasons. And naturally, it is up to us to be able to do the evaluation of the messages, the content in the messages received. And over here, we did primarily psychographies, which are messages that are received by mediums and in a written form. So you have the opportunity to read and reread and analyze and reanalyze and gain a reasonable confidence that indeed the spirit who signs the body that matches such a name may be indeed that spirit when it lived, that incarnation had assumed that name, or it may not. But then he changed and he says one thing: if you may not always identify the spirit itself, you can always identify the moral qualities of that spirit. And we use the term distinguish between good and evil spirits. We have a little of a problem with the word evil. So I'd rather say the morally elevated and inferior moral spirits, morally speaking. That we'd be able to do with using our intelligence, using our free will, freeing ourselves from pride, and making an analysis very critical and free of prejudices. We should be able to see in that message the quality of the spirit who wrote that message. And the main instrument for us to do is in the language used. And Kardec will now kind of explore more what does he mean by language. And I think it's a very opportune and valuable thing for us to use, for us to deal with mediumship, what receive message, to not be trapped in some of the many possibilities that a disguising spirit with second intentions may present to us. You know, very flowery, beautiful messages with a completely empty of moral value, or in disguise, leading us towards something that may be quite dangerous. So we start at 265 now. Who's there to read first today?
I will if you need.
Thanks, Philip.
265. Intelligence is far from being a sure sign of moral superiority, because intelligence and morality do not always develop in tandem. A spirit can be good, kind, and of limited knowledge, while an intelligent and educated spirit can be quite inferior morally. It is generally believed that in questioning the spirit of someone who had been knowledgeable in a certain specialty while on earth, one will more surely obtain the truth. This would seem logical, but nonetheless, it is not always the case. Experience has shown us that scholars, as much as other men and women, and especially those who left the earth a short time ago, are still under the control of the prejudices of their corporal life and are not immediately free of a theorizing mind. It is also the case that, influenced by the ideas that had nourished and provided them with glory during life, they see things with less clarity than we might suppose. However, we do not state this principle as a rule, far from it. Rather, we only warn that this may happen and that as a result of their scholarliness as humans is not always a guarantee of their infallibility as spirits.
Okay. This is so important for us to analyze here. First of all, you know that all progress is continuous, and it, in an analogy used by Emmanuel, you have these two wings of progress, right? You have the wing of the intellectual and the moral. In order for us to really take off and fly, both needs to grow together. If we can't really fly out with just one wing shorter than another, we cannot fly like that. That's why individuals who cultivate aves, they will cut just one wing shortly, does not hurt the animal at all, but they cannot fly if one wing is shorter than the other. In our progress, we will develop, in general, more often, the intellectual a little bit ahead of the moral, because it's relatively easy, and I had given the reasons for that. So we may find individuals, and we have many examples in history and in present, that seems to be quite advanced intellectually speaking, knowing tremendous amount of knowledge, being able to captivate masses, but the moral value of the speech, moral value of what they present, reflects on one of a very low moral quality. And we have some cases that's the opposite. Someone who does have not had the opportunity to develop many intellectual skills and put much effort in develop the moral skills. It's more rare than the first one, again, because the intellectual is easier to conquer. So spirit will provide a message, a psychography. It remains intellectual values, but no moral content. And the other way around is more rare, because there is, at the end, a symbiotic relationship of those two wings. As we continue to grow, let's say only the moral side, and continues growing in disparity, the moral one stays behind. It comes to a point that we need to take a break of the intellectual progress and allow the moral to catch up, so we can fly. Otherwise, we could never take off, right? And when that happens, usually the moral goes a little bit ahead, and it's always going in this symbiotic relationship that one pulls the other side up. one's always pulling the other side up until they are leveled. And that's the point in when we are in very good control of ourselves and be able to take off. Another point that is very important here is in dealing with spirits who had experiences in previous incarnation and were scholars that were doctors in one or another field of science, that we would expect that upon leaving this world, they would go back to the spiritual world and be owners of the truth. So one important thing that Kardec tells here indirectly is that we don't have the truth here. You have little fractions of it, little tiny pieces of it. And when you leave here, go back to the spiritual world, we're not going to get the other fractions that is missing. Let's say that I have 1/5 of it. If I scan it now, I'll get the other 4/5 just because I discard it. That's not going to happen. I'm going to continue to be what I am. I continue to have what I have. I continue to know what I know. And when we question those spirits, let's say that just for an example, Einstein gives us psychography in dealing with physics. Here you present pretty much what he had conquered here. And it's so obvious that he may be able to, with the limitations of the physical body, gain something extra by not having the needs of the physical body. So it might be a little bit above of what he had here. And another thing, he may continue to study over there. He may continue to dedicate his time in the study of physics and gain new knowledge while then presented to us. But still, it's not going to be the owner of the truth. And with a little humbleness, he will be the first one to tell us that. Now, if there is a lack of humbleness, he may come and say, I got it all here now. And that will be a big red flag for us. If the spirit comes and say, I hold the truth in my hand now and I'm ready to share it to you and you better take it, that's a really big red flag that has to be very careful. Because no one will own the truth, not here, not when they leave the physical world. The physical world, they conquer the spiritual world. Do we have an opportunity, without the limitations of the physical body, to perceive things, to be exposed to things that the physical body limits us? Yes, that's an absolutely true. When you are free from the necessities of surviving, free of the necessities of providing for this physical body, and when our senses are extremely more augmented and our perceptions are extremely more refined in the spiritual world, we do have the ability to perceive things and perhaps be more clear about things while there than while here. But still, we are not going to be holding the truth in our hands. You're not going to be so much more evolved than what we are here. This is very important for us to keep in mind because deceiving spirits will present themselves as such. And there's a very strong warning that Kardec gives to us in the identification of the quality of spirits. Once we live here, we're going to carry our prejudices. We're going to carry our vices. Not going to be free from them immediately. Again, having the greater perception, having a much refined ability to perceive things around us and within us, more important, we may be able to make some very important changes while in the physical world, but not that much greater. If we study, I don't know, in social science something, and we are led to have this or that ideology, once you go back to the spiritual world, you're not going to reverse it completely. You're not going to change it completely. You're going to maintain those kinds of things for quite some time. So especially for spirits who have not discarded too far ago and come back and presents him or herself as someone else, is a red flag, because we're not going to change that much at all. Okay, questions, comments? Okay, 266.
By submitting all communications to rigorous examination, probing and analyzing their ideas and expressions as if we were appraising a literary work, rejecting without hesitation everything that is contrary to logic and common sense, and everything that belies the character of the spirit who claims to be manifesting, we will be able to discourage deceptive spirits who will thus withdraw, since they will be convinced that they cannot deceive us. We will repeat that this is the sole means, but it is nevertheless infallible, for no evil communication can bear up under rigorous criticism. Good spirits are never offended at such examination, because they have nothing to fear, and they themselves have counseled us to proceed in this manner. Only evil ones are offended and try to dissuade us, since they have everything to lose, an attitude that proves who they really are. Here is the advice that St. Louis has given on that matter. No matter how legitimate the trust that the directing spirits of your works may inspire in you, there is a recommendation that can never be repeated too often, and which you must always bear in mind as you pursue your studies. Weigh and analyze all the communications you receive, submitting them to the most rigorous control of reason. Whenever anything appears to be suspect, doubtful, or obscure, do not neglect asking for all the explanations needed to form your opinion.
I think the need of Kardec, and reinforced by St. Louis in this small paragraph to bring this message to us, is because there is unfortunately, there is this group of spiritualism that affirms that only good spirits provide communications. That if a spirit is able to communicate via mediumship, it's because it's an evolved spirit. And if you do a very serious analysis of the content that mediums receive everywhere and throughout history, and in spiritist centers throughout this world, and non-spiritist centers that also practice mediumship, we'll see that that's not a fact. We'll see that the truth is we are what we are, with or without a physical body. So the fact that we lose a physical body does not put us a step above in the pathway of progress. Again, I repeat, without the limitations of the flesh, we may gain extrasensorial perceptions that we don't have here. But we're not going to transform ourselves in Mother Teresa just because we don't have a physical body anymore. We continue to be what we are. And with your of inferior moral qualities, we remain an inferior spirit here or there. So that's one of the importance of Kardec insisting that we have to make a very rigorous analysis of everything they receive from the spiritual world, not to become prey of those who try to deceive us, or those who try to bring an agenda that goes contrary our happiness, contrary to our progress. That's three good things here. One, if a group of spirits is trying to sell something and find no buyers in that group with that medium, it's gonna try to sell it somewhere else. If we do our responsibility of analyze everything and using the suggestion of Kardec that we are better off rejecting 10 truth than accepting one lie, the lying spirits, the deceiving spirits, they're not going to be around wasting their time. When they see that they cannot penetrate in that group or stick wrong ideas in that medium's mind, it's going to go somewhere else. And hopefully everyone will be educated. And in this process of education comes the second importance. We are also assisting those rebellious spirits, those spirits perhaps with out of anger or out of ignorance, they have an agenda that is contrary to goodness, contrary to charity. By experience contact with mediums, with groups of individuals who do not accept those ideas, they may learn something. They may be able to become more mellow in their anger and anything else, but only by having contact with those spirits. We know that happens. And three, we open that space for more evolved spirits to use the mediumistic channels that are available. Because it's a matter of choice, right? We choose who's going to be our friend. We choose who will make use of our mediumship. And by doing this analysis and reject anything that is suspicious, we open more space to receive more profitable messages to educate ourselves, so we can pass the education through everyone who cares to listen. And this is not new. John, the evangelist, had already suggested to us when he said, no, not all the spirits are from God. We must test the spirits to see if they are from God. So even at John, at the time of just after the death of Christ, had already told us to be careful, that not all the spirits are from God. And of course, this is an analogy that he used, because we are all from God, and we are all progressing and becoming better and slowly freeing ourselves from our evil tendencies and better, making ourselves better. I think that's it here. Comments, questions?
Elmo.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we always say, in a spirits group that works with well-organized mediumship with Christ, as you always say, and we know the amount of work that takes to bring the spirits to connect with the medium, the energy, and everything involved. And you also mentioned in the past that sometimes even those groups, sometimes you get one of those things just to have the people in the group, you know, make sure that they're keep the balance and keep it working. But this kind of spirits that pretty much with all this work is involved. Is that like a routine thing on a serious mentorship group? Because this is pretty much a waste of, you know, everybody's time when a spirit comes with a message that's not profitable to no one. Is that like a once in a while thing? Is that a routine? And if it's a routine, what's happening with the group? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it should not be a routine. If it's been a routine, there is something that needs to be repaired in that group. Perhaps even taking a break from the exercise of leadership, go back to the books, go back to study, go back to the basis, reorganize and recognize the errors. One good thing is, if there is the recognition of the group that this is happening routinely, it's already a good thing. If there is the recognition of the group that the messages that they're receiving of low moral qualities, it's already a good thing. Because the biggest problem is when this is happening and no one is catching up. And even worse, everyone is being fascinated by the emptiness of the content and buying, you know, the wrong ideas that is being offered by those spirits. So only by recognizing that this is happening, it's already a plus. Now, it should not be, as I said, a routine. How can we, I don't know, when we walk in the cities of New York here today, you go to just about every corner and you smell that, at least my perception, tinge of cannabis, right, of marijuana. How do you know there is marijuana? Because you've been exposed to it, somebody taught you that smell is marijuana, and do I have to smoke it? No. Do I have to hang out with people who does it? No. But I will learn by experience it directly, indirectly, right? How am I be able to make those distinctions to know how to do proper analysis of a message that disguise a viper in a field of flowers? I need to be exposed to it to be able to make that recognition. So from time to time, we'll be exposed to those things as an exercise. But it should be rare. And one more thing that you have to consider here, how can one learn without being exposed to a teacher? So very often that spirit that is being allowed, so to say, to provide that message, to bring those ideas, is a needy spirit as well, that is having an opportunity of being exposed, to the values of that spirituals bring, to be associated with energies that will perhaps assist that spirit to have a change of mind, a change of heart in the course, as a learning opportunity for that spirit. But again, as you said, probably it should be rare. It should happen from time to time, and we need to be able to recognize it. If it's happening frequently, there's a problem. There's a problem with the medium, or there's a problem with the group, and needs to be addressed. It needs to be correct. even if necessary, as I said, you just completely stop the exercise of mediumship temporarily, go back to the bases, go back to the books as we're doing here now, and prepare ourselves to reinitiate, better prepared to avoid the routine waste of resource. But from time to time, we need to have that exposure to be able to deal with when it happens. And from time to time, that's the best means of assist of a needy spirit. The normal pathway used through psychophony, as we know very well, but there is always exceptions to the rules. There are always special cases.
And that evaluation is always done by the incarnate ones, right? It's not like you, I mean, you can pray and ask for guidance, inspiration, whatever, but it's not like you pass that to the to this incarnate spirits to evaluate that mess. That's our job. The incarnate, the group, is our job to identify that, right?
That's right. That's our responsibility. That's our job. But again, we are never alone, right? We always receive inspiration and guidance, right? In accordance to our intentions, in accordance to our objectives. Better Spirit is going to be there to help us. And if, as I used to say, if I choose, they want to plan to rob a bank, there will be plenty of spirits who will inspire me on how to rob a bank. If I plan to make a trip to a country and help, bring water, clean water to the population, I'll always be inspired by those who help me in that journey as well. So if I'm in the work of trying to make analysis of messages, I'll also be inspired in that direction as well. And if a good group is organized, and as you mentioned, you exercise leadership with Jesus, we have to assume and be confident that that environment is surrounded by protective and good spirits who will help us, but the work is ours. The help is always there.
And one last thing, let's say a not so experienced medium, probably after psychographing something like that, we all need help, but the new newbie probably will need more. But let's say a well-trained, experienced medium, while on psychographing, you already detect, or perhaps they are able to detect that it's not a good message. Should then proceed with the message and allow all the group to learn, or if he or she sees that it's not even worth it, just to stop the communication.
Okay.
Once it identifies that there is a problem with the message.
So this is my personal view on that. Okay, and put to discussion. I think that a medium in an organized group, a medium who trusts the environment and trusts the colleagues doing the work, when the medium is in a mediumistic trance and is acting as a pen at the hand of the spirit, he or she should be just that. Do all the writing as if we're just a pen at the hands of that spirit. And then we make the analysis together, and then we do the work of going through that message and decipher the quality of that spirit, being more evolved or less evolved, having good intentions or have evil intentions. We cannot do that together. But then again, it's my personal view on that position. I think in a trustworthy group, A medium should be just that. During the mediumistic trance, just do the writing, and then we do the analysis after. Otherwise, how can you do the analysis after? Otherwise, how can you have the opportunity to assist that spirit that perhaps eventually later you come in through a cacophony, or even through our prayers or vibrations once we recognize that spirit is in need of help. So that is my personal position. And I say my personal position because I don't think I read specifically Kardec answering that question. Perhaps I did, and I missed it.
Yeah, I ask because sometimes mediums, they, not often, but I've seen they made that call not to reveal it. Not in case of personal messages for them, but sometimes, they feel like, it's not going to be good for no one, the message. That's why I ask.
Yeah, personal is personal, and of general value. How can we make the decision of what is of value for me or value for X or Y? How much do we really know of everyone else to make that decision right then and there? Perhaps was of some value for me, or more important, perhaps of value for that spirit in need of some help that perhaps wasted opportunity of assisting. But then again, this is my personal position that, and if a medium, you have mediums who says, oh, I'd rather stop right then and there. If I see that it's not good, I'm out, I disconnect, and that's it. And perhaps it has its value as well.
Elmo, it's Carol
I
here.
think in general, yes. Go ahead, Carol.
No, go ahead.
No, you can ask the question, Carol. I'll give my view.
Well, I was just wondering, maybe you can clarify, would this be like a spirit circle or a mediumistic circle, but not the spirit rescue circle in which we're speaking of? In other words, we would have an individual group that would be learning, practicing, but not really directly involved with spirit rescue. It would be separate. Is that correct?
Yes, but doesn't have to be necessarily separate. Let's imagine in our group, when you do the work of a system of rescue, right? And while a medium A is having a cacophony and having a dialogue through the spirit dialogue with one of the dialoguers, a medium C is writing. Right, very often we see that the other medium is in a mediumistic trance, and is writing a psychography. So the two things are happening simultaneously, right then and there. So it could happen in a mediumship group of rescue as well, or it could be in a session of mediumship psychographies when mediums put themselves in a position of to receive messages, and the messages are coming up through various mediums, and then you analyze each one of them.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks for clarifying. Thank you very much, Elmo.
Yeah, my point is, regardless of the type of the mediumship medium that you have, the analysis of the content should always be the same. Wrong?
Yeah, and going back to what Renato was bringing, I think that, again, I'm not a medium, extensive medium, so, it's and I don't remember reading anything about it also. But I agree with Elmo in the sense that the medium should be concerned about being an intermediary that's it, right? The analysis is after. But again, we talk about mediums when they are receiving psychophony. If they sometimes they think it's too much to interrupt the communication if they are struggling with it for some reason, physically, mentally, things like that, right? If it's causing harm to the medium. So, you know, in a case that the medium is receiving the message and they feel that the message is a deceiving spirit and they are being disturbed by it, I wouldn't see a problem in the medium interrupting the message. And again, when they interrupt the message, there will be some part of it that can be analyzed and brought to the group. But in general, I agree with Elmo that it should be, you know, the medium should be just the intermediary. I don't know, you know, Fabio, if you have gone through something like that, you receive psychographic messages. I don't know if you have experienced something like it, and or what, you know, if you have in your experience something like it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't remember on the top of my head if there was a moment when the communication was coming and
It's cutting out, Fabio. Yeah, we cannot hear you now.
hold on a second. Let's see.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, much better.
I don't remember on the top of my head a situation where that something like that happened. It was that I imagined or that I felt that it was a test or anything like that. I guess from the kind of work that is done there, and when I was doing a lot of the work on Mondays, it was so smooth in the sense of, since we were there for that particular time, I don't remember that there was ever a situation when it didn't mean that it was the real communication that needed to be given. Does it make any sense?
Yes, completely, and goes together with what I was saying, that it should be something kind of rare. That should not be happening often in an organized group, a group who put itself in the position of assisting spirits. It should not be something that we would experience relatively often. If that's happening, it's a problem that have to be addressed. But again, the only way to recognize.
Emma, just let me just say and also I think that what I remember seeing in the center is that the when instead of psychography, the other type of messages, you know, the obsessive spirits will continue to come, and I don't know if that can be construed as some sort of exercise for the medium, because as you know, there were mediums that were constantly receiving the same type of spirits, and it was, I guess, was a case of an obsession, but at the same time, those mediums didn't do anything, I guess, to change that, and they left the center. This is maybe a separate story, but maybe somewhat related to, you know, the kind of tasks that we're put into it.
Yeah, I think it goes together in the discussion, the sense of having the humbleness and even the intellectual ability to recognize something is fishy over here, something requires our attention, or be in a position of pride and say, oh no, my work is uncontestable. My work is not to be evaluated and tested by ourselves. If the spirits are talking to me, it's because it's good, because it's of value. when that happens, a problem that the medium has to take action and make it on work on it, right? The group will try to help, will try to open the eyes of that mirror as much as possible. And we know cases in our own group that happens in which none of them we ever asked them to leave the group because they were not being good mediums. On the contrary, we are trying to support them, trying to help them as much as possible, overcoming whatever is the matter that attracts those spirits continuously to those cacophonies. Unfortunately, and that's my personal perception as well, pride becomes a major factor that those mirrors choose to live. And then there's not much that we can do. We can prove how we are all vulnerable. And you really have to be careful. And that's the importance of doing these studies and doing those analysis, because we are all very vulnerable. Again, this very, very smart, intellectually capable spirits, we can put a message over there that it looks like a wonderful, wonderful thing. And if you don't do the very careful analysis, we're not going to see the viper in the arms of the flowers. And if you've not been exposed to, periodically for this kind of things, we're not going to be able to make that distinction. But when it happens, we have to be humbled and have to be diligent in doing the work. But again, we are all vulnerable. So it can happen to any one of us if you don't pay attention.
Now, I was thinking here, just if you can give me a little bit of latitude, because the spirits that come on a meeting, usually they don't want to be there. Even the dark ones, they want to run away from us. And in a case of this particular psychographer trying to deceive us, the spirit, I'm assuming that wants to be there to do that work, to try to deceive us. So it's a different kind of evil spirits, let's put that way, for the lack of a better word, than the others that come usually. Do you agree, or am I missing something here?
Yeah, in general, yes. I mean, we have to have the differentiate of the suffering spirit who is there with tremendous anger, with immense desire for revenge because it cannot free him or herself from a past of suffering, and acts maliciously out of hurt, from those who act maliciously out of a greater objective, a greater purpose. The one who is sent over there by a group of intellectual spirits who have an agenda, and they trust that spirit will be able to deceive the group with the messages. It's completely different to when you say a suffering spirit, and one is suffering out of pain, and one is to have the suffering of the moral illnesses of the soul of the spirits who has a say an antichrist agenda, so to say.
Thank you.
So someone was trying to sell discord, disharmony, even inside of the group, to weaken the strength of the group itself. That spirit who wants to be there, you're right. The spirit is perhaps sent over there with that work to do. And it's still a needy spirit. And it's still a suffering spirit as much as the one who ends up in the spiritual world and even recognize it, or the one who is suffering the pains of not being able to disconnect for a past of tremendous amount of suffering, seeking revenge. But it's still a suffering spirit. Those more eloquent with those with agenda may provide a psychography and may try to fool us through a psychography. And one thing is important. I truly believe that they are allowed to do so. It's not that they break the security codes or anything like that. It's not that they can deceive the protecting spirits of the house. They are allowed to. They are allowed to be there to be that experience that we need, or because they are in need of what we have to offer.
So in a sense, it's like on the liberation when Saldanha is exposed to be around Gubbio, and ends up coming to the good side, let's say that way. So in this sense, because if it goes to the regular channels, this spirit that's going to give this communication has to stick around for the entire meeting pretty much. So he'll be singing and being exposed to all the good stuff that's happening also in that meeting. And perhaps they plant a seed on that spirit, and the plan backfires for the bad guys, right?
Yeah, how many times that we had extremely angry spirits giving communication, psychophonies, primarily psychophonies, saying that I come to get my workers, the ones that took away from the one that we are holding prisoners here. And we tell, no, they are here because they choose to stay here. We don't, this is not a prison. They come, they like what they saw, they like what they heard, and they choose to stay. How many times have we experienced that, right, Ron?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you can proceed. 267.
Have time for one more, Elmo? It's 5 minutes left.
So no, it's continuing because here is a series of many guidelines from Kardec. I don't see my watch here. Any more questions on the topic? I think I better leave that for next time. Yeah, but again, what I emphasize here is that all of us are at risk. And that is the importance of doing these studies. And that is the importance of having this moral upgrading and exercise of mediumship to try to free ourselves as much as we can for vanity, for pride, because they are smart out there. And again, we can't see them. And they are intellectually very well versed, and they can fool us if you allow them. But again, only if we allow them. We'll continue next week. Make the final press for us, Carol.
Sure. Thank you, Elmo. That was great. Infinite Creator, all the good spirits who are helping us, assisting us to be together, to receive a better understanding of mediumship and communication and discernment. We need to evaluate the spirit messages that we receive, especially psychographies. We must use our analysis and our reason. Be aware and be careful of spirit names that are dropped. And of course, deeply probing the language that is being used by the spirit. Are there any red flags? Are there things that are peculiar that we can probe more deeply and question? It's all very important that we make a rigorous assessment of what is received through the mediums. We are grateful this evening to be together in unity, to share our studies in the medium's book, to be guided by the good spirits, the helpers, the teachers, the counselors, the guides, helping us to really assess more evenly with a discerning mind. We are grateful for the lessons we have learned, and may we continue to do so throughout the week. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits who are with us, and may we receive their guidance to help us each and every day to do the best that we can endeavor from our hearts and from our minds as well. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us. And may we be aware that there is always help, there is assistance as we ask and as we do our part. We are grateful for what we have received in terms of understanding this evening, and may we share with others as we are able to do so. When we close, humbly asking this portion of the meeting that we go forth to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers with peace, protection, and guidance as we return. We are grateful for the love, light, and peace of Christ to be within us throughout the week and throughout the times that we are able to share with others who are in need of healing, who are in need of help, who may need encouragement, and perhaps just a listening ear. We are grateful for all the tools that we have, and may we continue to be benevolent to others, to be forgiving, and to be less challenging. May we be at peace within us. May we go forth in that vibration. And we ask now to close this meeting, please, and that we can go forth as beacons of light in gratitude and in harmony. So be it.